All right, so this is DTR. Now, help me out. How many of you have been here for the last DTR 2 years ago? Remind me. So not a ton of you. I want to give you right from the beginning just an outline of what this is going to look like over the next 3 weeks. So tonight, if we could get this week 1, we're going to go over some goals and definitions. And I know that sounds like a snooze fest, but I want to make sure we're on the same page with what are the things we're running after. We're going to talk about singleness. And I know it's supposed to be a dating series, so why are we talking about singleness? But we don't do singleness great in the church. And so I want to make sure that we clear that up a little bit so that we don't, if we do that in an unhealthy way, we can enter into relationships similarly. And then also, what does it mean to be just friends? We got to bring some clarity there, and we're going to talk a good amount about that. Now, next week is all about getting out of the friend zone. So next week, we are going to be talking about becoming marriage material. We're going to be talking about finding the right person. We will talk about online dating. That's a big section nowadays. How many of you have online dating profiles or have had online dating profiles? Anyone want to admit it? You guys, there's so many liars in this room right now. Yeah. I want to break down first dates as well. Like this is part of we're going to talk a lot today about friends, and you're going to be like, isn't the point dating? Well, we got to clarify some things, but next week, the goal is to get out of the friend zone. What does that look like? Especially those first few dates. We gotta start off well. And then in making it official, which I have distinguished those two things. You'll understand next week exactly why. And then lastly, we're going to talk about, all right, you're official, you're dating your boyfriend, girlfriend, you put a name on it. What are some boundaries that are going to help you honor God in that relationship? Timelines, what does that look like? I really pray this is a practical series. So I want to talk about, all right, you start dating. How long should you date till you're engaged? How long should your engagement be? Things like that. And what are major markers along the way? Finally, how to break up, which hopefully we got to talk about, but hopefully that's like not the timeline for everybody right there. It's not inevitable, right? But you got to break up sometimes, and I want to talk about that and working through mistakes. So that is everything that we have in store for the next 3 weeks. I'm excited. Let's get right to it. Now, you have a handout, which I also have. There it is. Cool. And I want to begin with this. I want to begin with goals, and the goal is healthy and successful relationships. That's your first blank right there. Healthy and successful relationships. And that begins with successful walks with the Lord. Now, again, it's a dating relationship. Why do we need to talk about that? We're not dating the Lord, right? Hopefully you're in a lifelong relationship with him, and hopefully it's not dating. It looks very different. But really, our relationship with God has to be first and foremost. It has to be primary, and the way you approach dating is going to be dictated by your relationship with God. Now, some of you are in relationships now, and you never approached God with whether or not you should be in that relationship, right? Some of you, that's how things have been in the past. Some of you, you didn't. So often, even Christians who go to church, worship God, we just don't consider him with some major decisions in our lives, and this is one of them. But our relationship with the Lord needs to be first and foremost in our lives. And I love this quote. It says right there by C.S. Lewis, "We know the sexual life. We do not know, except in glimpses, the other things which in heaven will leave no room for it." I love that. We spend so much time here on earth talking about the other sex, captivated about, the relationships we're in. Just, there's so much we invest in these relationships. But my prayer is that the relationships we have with friends, with those that we're dating, or those who we're in a long-term relationship with, those friendships, those marriages, those relationships should build up our relationship with God. And there will come a time in heaven, I've been married for, next year will be 15 years, and there will come a time in heaven, and hopefully, I'm pretty stoked about that. I still haven't made the chorus at the weddings where they do the anniversary song. You know what I'm talking about? And they bring out all the couples, and then they go like, sit down if you've been married 15 years. And I haven't made the chorus yet. My goal is to win that song. That's not why I got married, but it is a goal. I've been married 15 years. I hope to be married like a long, long time, right? I want to be old and I want to grow old with her, but I'm going to get to heaven and like this relationship that I've invested so much into, it's going to be so different because my relationship with God, that's first and foremost. That's what we're there. I'm to worship God and my wife's going to be there. But it's not going to be like it is here. It's going to be different. And I don't want to make her my God. And I don't want you to make your dating relationship your God. We got to make God, God. And good marriages, good relationships, they make you better Christians. But we also recognize this. When we do this wrong, we can get hurt. And I've seen people leave the church and even leave the faith because of how they approached a dating relationship or because of the wounds and hurts that they've received because of an unhealthy relationship. And I don't want that. So first and foremost, if you want to have a good dating relationship, I would challenge you, how's your walk with the Lord? And if it's so-so, then that's your first primary priority by far. If it's good, it's still your priority. Like that is everything. Next up, what's the next goal? Healthy, successful relationships. So that's with the Lord. It's also successful friendships. Now, why are we talking about that? But when it comes to our relationships with people, we cross lines, blur lines everywhere. And it is important to have successful, healthy friendships. Those are going to bless your dating relationships. They're going to bless your walk with the Lord, but just as much they can bring it down if they're not healthy, if they're not strong. There's a whole slew of people who have had unhealthy friendships, and it caused a lot of hurt and pain in their relationships. So we want those to be healthy. We want healthy, successful dating relationships. And that's a relationship between a man and a woman intent on discerning whether they are fit to enter into the covenant of marriage. Now, there's something I'm not going to do a lot in this series, and I'm not going to defend some of the stances that I take. This is one of them. Marriage is defined as between a man and a woman. I'm not going to spend a long time defending that. I want to tell you, I do not believe that any other relationship, a relationship between a man and a man, even if it's a lifelong relationship, I do not believe that is marriage. I think marriage has to be a man and a woman, just like there's certain definitions, like if you have, like you can't just call a square a circle. You can't, it doesn't work because it's a different thing. And I want to tell you, marriage, as laid out in Scripture, it's a covenant between a man and a woman and God that's lifelong. That's that type of relationship. So I'm not going to really go into more details for that, but that a successful dating relationship is you figuring out, are we compatible to enter into that covenant of marriage? I want to also argue this, that if you start dating someone and you break up in such a way that you have come to the conclusion we are not compatible to enter into the covenant of marriage, but you can break up where there's not a lot of baggage or wounds or hurts, that in many ways is success. We don't do that well. But remember, if the goal of dating, and we're going to spend more time on this next week, if the goal of dating is clarity, are we compatible to enter into that covenant of marriage, then success would be you finding clarity that you are or you are not. And that's what we're going to figure out. How do we properly do that? So next one is a successful marriage. Now, these are all the relationships. Successful walk with the Lord, successful friendship, successful dating relationship, and successful marriage. And I already defined that a little bit there. And you guys, we need good marriages. Like as a community, as a church, as a city, like where there are healthy, strong marriages, you're going to find healthy, strong communities. Where you see the breakdown of that the long-term negative effects of a breakdown of marriage are significant. And there are so many different places and ways we can point to that and understand that. But unfortunately, for many people in this room, we don't have to point far because you recognize that. You've seen it in your life. And I mourn that. It is so important. Our goal for all of this is we want to really approach dating from a God-honoring way so we can enter into marriage in a way that honors God so that we can know the blessing and favor and have our kids know the blessing and favor of that strong God-honoring relationship and prevent and keep our future kids from the hurt and pain that is too commonly felt by many of us and many kids nowadays. So successful marriage. And I want to tell you this. Marriage was created by God. Here's some of your fill in the blanks to glorify him. First and foremost, glorify him. Now, we don't typically talk like that. When we think about marriage, it's all about, man, the giant marriage ceremony that we've been waiting for and planning. We talk about all the expectations and thoughts and dreams that we have. But first and foremost, God designed marriage, and the primary reason is just to glorify his name. If you have not read Ephesians 5, I want to encourage you later tonight, read Ephesians 5. If you read Ephesians 5 and don't understand why I'm telling you to do that, come find me later. The next thing is marriage was created by God to refine both husband and wife. Refine. Iron sharpens iron. In marriage, there's no other relationship you will ever be in that is as refining as a marriage relationship. And there's a saying, in fact, there's a book called The Sacred Search. And if you, during this series, find that you're like, man, I want a little bit more, I want to dig deeper into this topic, I would highly encourage you to read The Sacred Search. But he has this line in there. Tim Keller, in his book, The Meaning of Marriage, also harps on the same line. And that's simply this: marriage is to make us holy, not happy. Marriage is to make us holy, not happy. Now, that's a huge paradigm shift by the way we approach marriage. Usually we approach marriage, I want to find someone who will make me happy. The problem is you will never find someone that can keep you captivated and enthralled for the next 40 to 60 years of your life. That person does not exist, right? Now, you could build up a relationship and create different ways where you find joy. And I mean, there are absolutely tons of Christian marriages that are filled with joy for 40, 50, 60 years. So I'm not saying that doesn't exist. But I'm saying if happiness is our goal, you will fail. But if holiness is your goal, then you're going to bring the Lord into this relationship in a powerful way. And what I love about it is statistically, you'll also be happier. The strongest marriages are the ones that make God a priority. Let's keep going. God created marriage to expand his kingdom, be fruitful and multiply. And God created marriage to fulfill our needs for companionship. And that it does refer to more than, I've been feeling fine, baby. More than that. All right, so we went through all of the definitions crazy quick. I want to move on. I could spend 2 weeks talking about all that, and we're not going to. And if you want to go further in that, please find me. If you have questions, if you're like, you didn't defend this statement and you want me to, let's get coffee. I would love to. For the sake of this series, we're going to kind of move along a lot quicker, but please find me if you need any follow-ups. But let's talk about singleness. Let's set the record straight about singleness. Now, we've made a mess a little bit of this about singleness. Singleness is not a sin solved by marriage. That's your first line right there. Being single doesn't make you less of a Christian. And this is a hard thing sometimes because within the church, we can spend a lot of time and resources talking about marriage. We can spend a ton of time and resources talking about marriage and kids. And nowadays, there are a lot of people. In fact, there's more people nowadays than I think in the history of the world that are not married and are not having kids. And so there's a few things we could do about that. We don't invest that time and money, but those are good, God-honoring things. Getting married is a good thing. Having kids is a good thing. I want to encourage you to get married and have kids. But if you're not there yet, and if you're single, it doesn't mean you're less of a Christian. And so there's this balance here because when we invest a lot of time and when we lift up marriage the way I think it should be lifted up, when you're not married, you could feel like you're doing something wrong. And you might be, and you might not be. That makes it a little bit more complicated too, right? But singleness is not a sin. And I want to encourage you, if you are single in this room tonight, it is okay for you to want to be married, but I don't want you to want to be married to such a degree, and I've seen this before, people, and I'm going to use the word desperate, and maybe that's a weighted word, but they're so desperate to get married that the first guy or girl that gives them attention, they're all in. And they'll compromise, or they'll make decisions that they know they don't want to make, or they would have counseled other people not to make, but this is their chance, and they don't want to mess it up. And I don't want you to view singleness in that degree where you run after marriage and you do it in a way that's not healthy or God-honoring because you just got to get out of singleness. Don't do that. Singleness is not a sin solved by marriage. And on that note, for the record, other sins aren't solved by marriage either. If you're burning with lust and you're struggling with lust to what other degree, we often think, man, I just got to get married. Once I have a wife, that's going to be taken care of. And the truth is, no, it won't. The truth is that I have counseled many, many dudes who are struggling with porn and think, I don't know why I got feedback when I said that word. They're struggling with that and they think, man, once I get married, game over, I'm done with that. And they're still struggling. If you want to have the relationship, like the God-honoring, God-blessed relationship of marriage or dating, I want to encourage you, if you're single right now and you're struggling with a sin, may it be pornography or something else, do the work to overcome that sin. Join an accountability group. Cut off access. Do all the things. But don't view marriage as this cure-all because you're going to be disappointed in that. So I bring that up because singleness is not a sin, but also the sins that we deal with, those are sins, and it's not like this, I get married and it's all done there. But the other line you have there is our identity is in the Lord, not in our sexuality. And this is true of a lot of things we do, right? People will say, I'm a blank Christian. I'm a married Christian. I'm a straight Christian. I'm a whatever Christian. And whenever you hyphenate Christian, whenever you put an identity marker before Christian, I want to challenge you that you're doing something wrong. Because I'm a Christian first and foremost. That is my identity. My identity is not in my sexuality. My identity is not in being single or married or things like that. My identity, first and foremost, is that I am a follower of Jesus Christ. I'm a disciple of his. And then from there, we could go different places. But sometimes we think, well, I'm a single Christian. and then we like put our Eeyore face on and stuff like that. Like, don't do that. In fact, if you're single right now, here's what I want to encourage you. Steward this season well. There's a few ways I want to encourage you to do that. One, you're in a season when you could really, like, I want to be careful, you can just work on you. When it comes to school, you can do school. When it comes to work, when it comes to figuring out like the things that you want to do in your life, you can focus on figuring those things out. And dudes, I want to say, especially for you, this is important. I'm going to argue that the ideal situation is that a dude finds out the mission of his life, the purpose that he's going to run after. And when a guy is on mission and a girl comes alongside and can be his helpmate to that mission within marriage, I think that's the strongest model for marriage. Let me give you an example. When I was dating my wife, I knew I wanted to be a pastor. So I was able to tell her, hey, Courtney, if you want to get married to me, this is the life you're signing up for. This is my calling. Do you want to be a pastor's wife? And she got to weigh that out. And it would have been fair for her to say, not so much. But that's what she agreed to when we got married. I am a pastor, and she has been an incredible helpmate, an incredible partner as I've pursued ministry. And I would argue I'm here today in a significant part is because of the help and the blessing that she has been in my life. So I want to encourage you. That would have been difficult to drop on her 2 years after we got married. It's a big potential career change. That would have been tough. But so right now, as you're single, figure out what is your mission? What is your goal? Ladies, I think that as men are called to lead the household, again, that's a disclaimer. I'm not going to qualify that, but we can talk later. I think men are called to lead, be the head of their household. That means what they are called to do, I think, is a primary need for them to figure out. But there's a lot of strength and help when you've done some of that work too as ladies. And you've said, all right, these are the things I know because I've stewarded my season of singleness well. I know these are the gifts that I have. These are the talents and things that I bring to a marriage. You have something powerful and necessary and good to offer. So spend your time while you're single looking and finding out and discovering what are those things that you're going to bring to a marriage that are needed. A few other things real quick about singleness. You have more time right now when you're single than when you're dating and married. So you get to serve in ministries in a way that are helpful and good and a blessing. I'm trying to think. There's benefits, there's blessings to singleness. Steward it well, and as you do that, you can be on the lookout for, all right, Lord, I'd like to get out of this season too and be open to that as we keep going. Cool? All right, I'm going to do something really dangerous. Any questions about singleness? You guys want to raise your hand and shout out? Are you serious? No. Okay. I didn't think so. All right, we'll keep going. Singleness is not a sin. Let's move on to the next thing. Let's talk about the friend zone. Let's talk about friendship. Now, I already defined a little bit of the goals, the relationships we're going after. It says there are relationships needing defining. And I want to talk about these real quick. So there's friends. How many of you have friends? I hope you all do. And if not, I'm glad you're here. I hope you find and build friends here. Here's what a friend is. Like, I know I'm friends with this person. They know I'm friends with them. Everybody knows we're just friends. There's no confusion. There's no like, yeah, we're friends, but I think he kind of likes me. Or we're friends, but I mean, like, we also talk like late at night about some like important, like maybe one day we won't be friends. Like, you're just friends. That's a friendship. And then there's dating. And dating for me, I'm going to say this. It's this like short period of time when you're figuring out, are we going to be boyfriend or girlfriend or are we not? And it's short. The dating that I'm talking about here, and I think you could be boyfriend and girlfriend and say you're dating also. I think there's room for that. But this dating, I'm going to say, is like 4 weeks long, maybe 8 weeks long at the most. You're figuring it out. I will explain that more, I promise. Then there's boyfriend, girlfriend. You put a name on it. You're officially dating, like we are official, and we're figuring out, are we compatible for marriage? We're pursuing that. Then there's engaged. You put a ring on it, right? You're official, you're engaged, and then you're married. But the beginning there is the friend zone. And that's where we, like right from the beginning, can mess it up. Let me show you a picture. Can you put up that meme? So there's this picture here. Let me read it to you. It says, from Top Golf to dinner, flowers, ice cream, and horseback riding, you outdid yourself on this friend date, Daniel. Oh, it gets better. You wanted to set a standard for how I should be treated, and you sure set a high one. I thank God so much that he put an amazing friend like you in my life. Thank you for making me feel like a true princess. Hashtag still single though. Oh. You guys, all right, can we be real? What are the odds? I am fairly confident this is setup. Like, I think this is fake. But how many of you, raise your hand if you think this is legit? This is real. All right. You guys, this can be real though. And things like this happen all the time, right? And if you look up friend zone memes, there's way more like this. I just didn't bring them all up. Or this is a problem. Like, first off, Daniel. This guy, he's in for it. He's trying. It's not working. And I hope he stops trying. Yes, friend zone, we need the friend zone. And the friend zone, again, it's clear to everyone that you're just friends. And look, the world defines it as this place you're stuck in when you have feelings for someone, but they don't share them. And I want to tell you, I want to just talk about friendship. If you have feelings for someone, I'm going to give you some direction on how to make that clear. So I don't want anyone to have feelings for someone and feel like you can't share that. You don't know what to do. You're just stuck in that for however long. I don't want you to be there. I can see for a little bit as you're finding things out, but I want to give you hope. But we need the friend zone. And we need it for these reasons. Mixed signals. That's your first line. Mixed signals. We as humans are really good at saying one thing and hearing another thing. And this is especially heightened when we're talking to the opposite sex. Like, someone walks up and some dude's sitting there and a pretty girl walks by and she says hi. And he goes, "Did you hear what she just said to me?" Yeah, it's pretty serious. Like, this is locked in. Like, she likes me. That's stupid. And it also, you guys know it's not. Like, we receive and hear so much more often than what's happening. And maybe you're like, oh, I don't. Well, you do that to other people too. It happens on both sides of things. And I have stories about this. I do this unintentionally. I think I'm better at it. But I remember, and I've shared this here before, I remember talking to my wife, and we're going through the drive-thru, and the girl on the drive-thru asked for my order, and I order my order. And I'm like, "Thank you so much. I'll see you in a few minutes," or "I'll see you soon." And I'm joking. And my wife, who's right next to me, goes, "You're flirting with her." And I'm like, first off, no. Second off, why would I do that with you right next to me? Like, I'm none of this. And third of all, I wouldn't do that if you weren't next to me. I just want to clarify. But I had no clue. I didn't know I was doing that because I was just talking. I thought I was being funny. And I'm not that funny. But then I've had multiple conversations. This is a common occurrence. I want to tell you, it happens here at Young Adults every other year where I will have a conversation with 3 or 4 dudes within a month time period. And they come up to me and they go, David, I think so-and-so likes me. I think, and I'm kind of interested. And what this guy doesn't know, or the other guy, is they're all talking about the same girl. And then, wait. Then I, because I like stepping in it, I go talk to the girl. And I say, hey, you like anyone? No, I don't want to date anyone right now. Like, I'm not in that season. And what happens is some of you are more of a flirt than you know you are. That's your personality, is you're kind. And what I mean by kind is you're kind and cute, and those things, it just gets complicated. We need the friend zone because we send mixed signals. And part of that is you and the expectations and the desires you have to be married and the expectations we have here as a community, bigger than Foothills, just big community. Part of it is how we engage with each other. All I'm saying is mixed signals. There's a lack of clarity there, and people get hurt in the process. And people get hurt in a couple different ways. 10, 15 years ago here in young adults, everybody dated everybody. It was like a Friends episode. And it was real complicated, and there's just problems with it. And people got hurt from that. Nowadays, because of a lack of clarity, because of mixed signals, instead of everybody dating everybody, what I see more often is nobody dating anybody. And a lot of times I have these conversations with people who guys, most of you, if you're not in a relationship, want to be in a relationship. And it's like, but I don't want to get hurt, and I don't want to hurt someone. And I don't, because there's a lack of clarity on how do we do this, that the type of hurt we're currently experiencing in the young adults isn't hurt because we've dated too many people. It's hurt because we're staying in that single season for longer than we want to. So we need some definitions on what is a friend and how do we get out of the friend zone so that we can just, in a more healthy, strong way, keep from people getting hurt. We need some more clarity. This next line there is Foothills dating is no bueno. Raise your hand if you know what Foothills dating is. All right. I don't know that this is as big of a deal as it used to be. By the way, it's not. I'm getting some head nods that it is. For the record, and I say this every single time, it is not a Foothills thing. This is if we were at Skyline right now, it'd be called Skyline dating. If we're at Shadow, it'd be Shadow dating. Name the church and just put their name beforehand. We all do it. And here's why. Foothills dating is this. When Courtney and I, here's my timeline for my wife and I when we were dating. We started talking in October, and I officially asked her out December. All right. Now, during that time, that wasn't too long, October, November, maybe it was slightly longer than what I'm going to suggest. But I knew she liked me. She knew, she knew I liked her. Everybody knew we liked each other. We were essentially exclusive, and we didn't put a name on it yet. It wasn't official yet. Now, for me, that was 2 months, and I was 20, so it wasn't crazy. But when we do this for 6 months, or 8 months, or a year, it gets complicated. And what I want to argue is there's a lack of, just like mixed signals, there's a lack of clarity. Foothills dating, there's a lack of integrity. And here's why Foothills dating happens, is we've combined a good thing with a couple bad things. We say good thing, we have some standards. And I don't want to make it official until I have all my ducks in order and I'm all ready to go. So I'm not going to be boyfriend, girlfriend until we know that we should do that. There's some pros to that. But then you're essentially dating. Because usually the only real boundary you have is that you're not making out. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I've had a few Foothills dating relationships in my tenure here. And I remember going on a date. It wasn't a date because we weren't official boyfriend, girlfriend. We held hands. We shouldn't have held hands because we weren't boyfriend and girlfriend. We shouldn't have been on a date. We were dating, except we weren't official. And there's so many things that get mixed up and hurt in that process. Because when you don't make it official, then did you break up? Well, you were talking, you were doing everything else like you were dating. It gets messy. There's no integrity there. We need the friend zone because that leaves people hurt. We need the friend zone. The next line is gossip happens. People talk. And we need this because it's just not healthy. Some of you don't talk to someone else here at Young Adults because you're like, look, if I talk to them, everyone will see, and then they'll talk, and then they're gonna start things, and that's annoying. That's frustrating. Some of you, so first off, we gossip when like two people look at each other for the first time. It's like, ooh, they're probably gonna get married. Right? We like can exaggerate and gossip and make big deals. But then when someone does date someone and it doesn't work out, then we talk also. And that person can't go ask someone else out because if they do that, then all of a sudden they're like, oh man, this or this person, like this, all like that, like they start, like we just make a big deal. And so then that person, how long can they not date someone? Are they not allowed for 6 weeks, 6 months, it gets complicated because we gossip. Am I not allowed to say that word? Is that a bad word? I didn't feel like that was that bad. Okay. Oh. You should see what's on my notes. But no, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. So, what are the friend zones? Let's figure this out. Here, to stay friends, here are the boundaries that I want to encourage you to think about. I'm going to tell you all of them right off the bat. I want to just pay attention to how much time we spend together, what we talk about, where we are, who's with us, what promises we make, and the means by which we communicate. So I'm going to go through all those, so don't worry if you didn't get them out. But I want to clarify from the very beginning, I'm not saying you can't talk to someone of the opposite sex. I'm not saying you can't spend time with them. I'm not saying that you can't, I'm not saying you can't. But currently, there's very few standards. In fact, we don't often think about these things in the first place. And I want to argue that we should. So to stay friends, we need to remember these things. How much time you spend together is the first one. Before I get to that, I want to say this. Biblically, we see a few different relationships modeled. We see, for guys, relationships with mom, sister, and wife. What we don't really see is close friend of the opposite sex. There's not that in Scripture. We know Paul had friends, and Jesus had, Mary and Martha. It wasn't like he couldn't walk into the house when they were there. They were friends. But Paul says to Timothy, when he's talking about how to lead, he says, do not rebuke an older man, but appeal to him as a father, to the younger men as brothers, the older women as mothers, and the younger women as sisters. He's saying these are the relationships we have. But this idea of super close besties of the opposite sex, that's not really a thing for, I would argue, most of history. And while I'm not arguing that we need to go back to the way it was years ago, where we're going to, next week, guys, all the girls are going to sit on this side, all the guys are going to sit over there. Don't look at each other, all right? We're not going back to that. I want you to talk to the opposite sex here. But I do think that currently, where we have, in fact, for a lot of guys and girls, the easiest relationships, what I hear all the time is, but it's just easier to talk to them. And I want to argue that's setting yourself up for some people to get hurt. And so what I want to argue is we need some greater clarity where we keep friends, and that will help us keep those who we're dating we'll have more intention there, clarity there. And look, really, when we keep friends, that's also going to bless your marriage. That's also going to bless other people's marriages. It's going to, like, having these standards just raises the bar across everything. And let's be real, right now, the standards of relationships in America could use some pretty big improvements. So how much time do you spend together? That's one. Look, if you're talking for hours a day or even an hour a day, you're sending mixed signals. If you're going out and it would not be appropriate for me to pick any girl in this room and say, hey, let's go spend some time together. That would be weird. That would be crossing some lines. Now, when I need to counsel a girl, I have my door cracked open in my office, or I do it at the coffee bar where there's public. I go above and beyond to make sure I'm not spending time one-on-one with a girl in a way that would even allow people to say, hey, what's going on here? But when you are just hanging out with someone of the opposite sex, I want to encourage you just to pay attention to how much time you're spending together. You can talk, please talk, but there is a line that you can cross. And even when you're like, man, we don't talk more than 10 minutes each day, but what that really is 15 or 20 texts back and forth or snaps or whatever it is. What that's thinking is you're thinking of that person 15 to 20 times a day. That could be a good amount. We are constantly connected nowadays. We're constantly, it's so easy to connect with one another. And I want to say, if you're a guy and you're constantly texting a girl, I think that's sending mixed signals. If you're a girl and you're constantly calling and texting a dude, I think there should be some boundaries there, because I do not believe a guy and a girl can spend a long time together without at least one of you growing feelings for the other person, right? Every time I say that, that used to be real controversial. I think we've all, if you don't agree with me on that, let's talk. I think that's pretty straightforward. I've seen it in my life. I've seen it with other people. I've seen it where you can't spend a long time. So you got to pay attention to that. You got to talk about, what are the boundaries? The content of your conversations. What I mean by that is, if someone, name the girl in here, we're getting together and we're talking about the weather, we're talking about school, we're talking about light things. And then I'm all of a sudden hey, can I be real with you? I'm really struggling with, here'd be the real boundary crosser. I'm really struggling with my wife right now. Can you, that'd be not okay. That would not be good. Or I'm really, there's this sin that I'm wrestling with. Can you pray for me? Can you help me work through that? Can you hold me accountable? Can you, the content of our conversation is something we should pay attention to. I think as I'm going through this, a handful of you are you haven't considered these things. And so it might seem either crazy legalistic or just completely different than what you've thought about. And I think that's part of the issue, is we should consider these things. All right, where are we? Who is with us? So that's where you go together. I remember I walked into Coffee Meister in Santee once, and Dan Dealing was there. He's the principal of Foothills Christian High School, and he's sitting there with a girl, and it wasn't his wife. And they're just one-on-one, and I go up, I'm like, Dan, how you doing? And he goes, hey, David, this is my sister. And I knew it was his sister. I know his sister. But he was going above and beyond to be above reproach, because it would be weird for him to be with, if it was his mom or his sister, okay, or his wife. But we all know if it's just some random girl, that would be crossing a boundary. That would be peculiar there, right? And so we need to pay attention. Dan Dealing is a man I respect. He was above reproach. He's hanging out with his sister. He gets to do that, right? But if you are hey, let's go to the movies with someone of the opposite sex, I want to argue you're probably sending mixed signals there, especially if it's a chick flick. But all right, be careful what promises you make. I'll always be there for you. I would never let that happen. I'm sorry that happened. Next time that happens, call me anytime. Like when we make vows or promises, big things, I want to argue that's crossing a boundary. There's always that thing like you're single, they're single. Hey, if we're both single by the time we're 30, if they do that, I want to tell you they like you. All right? No doubt. All right. And then the means by which you communicate. And this is a big one. You shouldn't be talking to someone of the opposite sex on any app that is like hidden. And here's the truth. Texting apps, often the very same thing can be text, but there's just something like more, I don't know how to put it. When you're doing it on one of these like apps that intentionally disappears or is just not as public, there's something that you're crossing a boundary there. And I think with text messages, if I'm texting name any girl in here and I'm texting you 20 times a day, that's a problem. If I'm texting any girl in here every day, that's probably a problem. The exception might be like people I work with. KJ might be the exception there, so long as what we're talking about is appropriate too, right? But even those things, like, we just got to keep an eye on that. So why do I bring all of this up? When we start to like mentally put these categories, these friendships and these dating relationships and these marriages, when we hold them in high esteem, here's the truth. We don't think of our friendships like this. And often it's because we just don't treat our friendships with the respect that they deserve, and or we're not treating these other relationships with the respect that they deserve. When you enter into a dating relationship and you don't see what I've talked about tonight as crossing any boundaries, you're inviting some challenges into that relationship. Same with marriage. Like, I want to challenge you, let's think of these things in a new light, a different degree, because I want to respect friendships. I want to respect those who we're dating. I want to especially respect those who we're eventually in the covenant of marriage with. The line there, it says, lastly, always aim to be above reproach. As Christians, this is really important as well. When a marriage breaks down, there are always other casualties. Like, people get hurt. Marriage is really important, and divorce is really difficult. It leaves a lot of people hurt. And I want to have a marriage that is above reproach. I don't want to even flirt with the things that are going to put it in a place of compromise. I don't want to do that. And I've seen it happen over and over again. I could tell you stories of people here at this church that they had a Facebook friend, and it was just a Facebook friend, and then it became more, and then their marriage was done. And you think, like, I won't do that. I would never do that. And yet it's really easy to do when we make small compromises because we don't hold these different relationships in the esteem that we need to. Let me end with this, and the band can come up. Some of you, like, as you're wrestling with these concepts and these ideas, the biggest challenge I want to bring to you is simply asking this. As you're looking to your relationship or the relationship you want to have, where is your current relationship with God? And to what degree are you approaching Him to prepare yourself or to get wisdom and counsel for the other relationships that you have in your life? I want my relationship with God to be such a defining relationship in my life that every other relationship is significantly influenced because of it. you and me, our friendship, and I would argue that I would call most of you friends. I like seeing you. I'm grateful when you're here. I like talking about the different things we talk about. I enjoy when we do events together. We're friends. I want our relationship to be significantly impacted by my relationship with God. And when things get rough between us, when I say something foolish and you're hurt, when you say something foolish and I'm hurt, I want to go to God for those things. And I want our relationship to be strong because my relationship with the Lord is strong. And I want to say that same thing about my marriage, even more so because it's kind of a big relationship. I can't say that anymore about dating. My prayer is I'll never say that about dating again, right? But if you're in that season, I hope that's true for you too. So as we're wrestling with this, again, next week, we're going to talk about getting out of the friend zone. Week after that, we're going to be talking about setting ourselves up for marriage success and the timelines with that. And some of you here, over the next few weeks, you're going to ask yourself, okay, am I on the right timeline? Have we set up the right boundaries? Some of you are going to ask yourselves, am I ready to enter into a relationship? Am I looking for the right person? But may we all ask ourselves throughout this whole series, am I approaching my relationship with God in a way that's going to set me up for success for all my other relationships? And am I willing to do whatever it takes so that I can pursue these relationships by His standard and for His glory? I think if we do that, we're gonna succeed. Will you stand up?